Right now on Morning News Now, a major campaign shakeup. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis suspends his campaign for president and endorses Donald Trump. The Republican race now shifting to a one-on-one competition between the former president and his former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley. What it all means just 24 hours out from the New Hampshire primary. It's not the only challenge, though, for Donald Trump. A source close to him tells NBC News that the former president may testify as early as today in a civil defamation damages case against him involving Carroll. What that could look like after his courtroom clash and online outburst against the judge. Also this morning, talks between Israel and Hamas are at an impasse as the families of the remaining Gaza hostages push for a deal. The major sticking points as we get a look inside some of the tunnels where Israel says those hostages were being held. And from delight in Detroit to heartbreak in Buffalo, the NFL Conference Championship games are set. We are breaking down a wild weekend of playoff football and looking ahead to next week's semi-final showdowns. Were you up a little late for that game?
Up a little bit late.
Yes.
I hope you are bringing your Jason Kelsey energy into the new week. Very excited.
Remain clothed.
With your shirt on.
Yes.
Or whatever. Good to have you with us. Some exciting games. We'll recap them in a little bit. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thanks for joining us this Monday. We're going to get started this morning with new developments in the battle for the Republican Party's presidential nomination ahead of tomorrow's New Hampshire primary.
The GOP field is now down to just two. The frontrunner, former President Donald Trump, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley. That comes after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis dropped out of the race yesterday. DeSantis, who came in a distant second place in the Iowa caucuses, threw his weight behind Trump yesterday in his withdrawal speech.
I can't ask our supporters to volunteer their time and donate their resources if we don't have a clear path to victory. It's clear to me that a majority of Republican primary voters want to give Donald Trump another chance. Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee, and I will honor that pledge. He has my endorsement.
For more on all this, let's bring in our senior national politics reporter, John Allen, and our senior politics editor, Mark Murray. Good morning to both of you. So, John, we'll start with you. I know you've been looking at the final hours of Ron DeSantis' campaign. Often a dropout like this, it comes shortly after a defeat, not sort of in between Iowa and New Hampshire like this. So what are you learning? Why did he end up dropping out yesterday?
Yeah, I think the bottom line, Joe and Savannah, is Ron DeSantis wanted to assess what was going on, wanted to see the donations coming in, wanted to get out on the campaign trail one last time when we talked to people close to him for that story. I mean, there was a real desire to wait until he couldn't see a path. And traveling in New Hampshire, it should not have been shocking to him to find that there was not much of a path. He was polling in the low single digits. For the most part, people weren't showing up. There were not a lot of people showing up to his campaign rallies. South Carolina, a similar outlook. And so eventually he concluded, what I think was obvious to a lot of other people, that there really wasn't a chance for him to be able to beat Donald Trump in this race. He met with advisors on Sunday morning in the governor's mansion in Tallahassee, a group that included Congressman Chip Roy from Texas, who's been very close to him, had a final conversation about it. Went upstairs with his wife, Casey, to have one last kind of one-on-one about it. They decided at that point that he would, in fact, drop out, and then you saw him drop out and endorse former President Trump.
John, what's been the reaction from Trump as well as from Haley to him dropping out?
Yeah, what we're seeing from Trump right now, and it's been going on since Iowa, is a call for unity in the Republican Party. Trump was magnanimous, or as magnanimous as Trump gets, when DeSantis dropped out. People around Trump, including Congressman Matt Gaetz, one of his biggest backers, one of his most prominent backers, have been saying nice things about Ron DeSantis, a guy that they'd been trashing for months. So, this is a moment for Donald Trump where he believes he can use a call for unity against Nikki Haley, make it even harder for her to attack him, and to try to start turning toward that general election with Joe Biden.
All right, Mark, let's bring you in here. Look ahead to tomorrow's New Hampshire primary. Does Haley have any chance of reining in Trump? Could she pick up some former DeSantis supporters now? What do things look like for her in New Hampshire?
Well, Joe, the good news for Nikki Haley is the contest here in New Hampshire is closer than it was in Iowa. The bad news is, according to multiple polls that we've seen, Donald Trump has a double-digit lead from likely Republican primary voters. That ranges from a 19-point lead that we've seen in the Suffolk Boston Globe NBC 10 tracking poll, as well as even an 11-point lead from other polling out there. And so right now, you have a situation where Nikki Haley is doing well with New Hampshire's independent voters, but Donald Trump is doing so much better among the registered Republican voters in the Granite State. And as far as how this all kind of breaks out with DeSantis out of the race, it's worth noting that Suffolk Boston Globe tracking poll showed about DeSantis's supporters went to Donald Trump by almost a 2-to-1 margin over Nikki Haley. And so that, I think that's kind of instructive. If you remove Ron DeSantis, it probably helps Donald Trump more than it hurts him.
Mark, between Trump and Haley, let's now stack this up. I mean, who has a better chance in a hypothetical matchup against President Biden? And also, sorry to throw an extra question here, but could this kind of all be over by Wednesday morning in terms of the Republican nominee?
So as far as the general election polling right now, the national polling, as well as even some polling in New Hampshire, which has been a battleground state in past election cycles, shows Nikki Haley actually overperforming in hypothetical matchups versus President Biden over Donald Trump. But, a caveat, we still have 10 months to go before the general election. These are hypothetical matchups, not even kind of measuring what the third party vote might be. But then, Santa, to your kind of question on, is this primary race over after Tuesday night? The indications are, if you can't beat Donald Trump to the right in Iowa, if you can't beat him going to the middle in New Hampshire, where can you beat him? And I think that is the biggest question remaining for Nikki Haley, as she's the only candidate left now against Donald Trump.
So much will depend on what those independent voters do tomorrow night in New Hampshire. All right, John and Mark, thank you both for kicking us off this hour. We appreciate it. Make sure to tune in to our special coverage of the New Hampshire primary tomorrow night. It's beginning at 5 p.m. Eastern. Kristen Welker, Tom Yamas, and Hallie Jackson right here on NBC News Now and Peacock.
Well, just one day before the New Hampshire primary, a source close to former President Trump tells NBC News that he intends to testify in his own defense in the civil defamation damages case involving writer E. Jean Carroll.
Trump has already been found liable last year of sexually abusing and defaming Carroll. Now a New York judge is set to decide how much money he'll owe her in damages.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Angela Sanadella. Angela, great to see you. So if Trump does appear in court again, it sets up this showdown with the same judge that we've seen him get into this heated argument with before, who threatened to kick him out of the courtroom. Trump at the time had replied, "I would love it." So kind of seeing some of that drama play out in the courtroom with their history and the issue of monetary damages on the line. What can we expect from the trial today and the rest of the week? What are you watching for?
So I think if he does testify, there are going to be fireworks for a lot of reasons, but primarily because we know that he has difficulty staying within the lines. And the judge has warned him that in this case, it's not a question of did he assault E. Jean Carroll or did he not? If he wanted to testify to that, he should have testified in the actual fact-finding trial. But the fact that he did not testify there does not mean that right now he can testify to that. So that's what his team wants to do, but he is not going to be allowed. So if he does get up on that stand, the only thing he can testify to is whether or not these financial damages should be limited. But I ask you, Savannah and Joe, how is Donald Trump going to really be able to know or offer any personal evidence about how much damage this has incurred to E. Jean Carroll if he claims he's never even met her, doesn't even know her? So I have a lot of questions about what this testimony is going to be like today. In terms of the future, we expect to see a fair amount of damages. Her team is asking for $10 million, but there's also the question of punitive damages, which are uncapped in New York. And look, punitive damages are meant to deter. We know that Donald Trump might not be deterred in this case.
So Trump lawyer Alina Habba also renewed a motion for a mistrial on Friday. This was after Carroll said in her testimony she deleted old emails that had threats to her safety. A judge denied the first request last week. What grounds does Trump's team have for that claim? How realistic is it that the judge will go for that?
It's unrealistic that that claim will be allowed, will be approved. It will most certainly be denied again. But the question here is somewhat significant, which is if her entire testimony and her case for damages is based on these alleged death threats, and if she cannot produce those death threats because those emails were deleted by her, I mean, his team is asking a real question, which is, well, then how can you possibly measure damages here?
How much will the verdict in the previous defamation trial make a difference during deliberations in this one? Remind us this connection.
So in the last trial, we saw $5 million in damages, and I do think it's possible that that will be a starting number here, but the final number will be far higher than that. And that's because in general with defamation, one of the issues is, will this stop this person from doing it again? Will this not continue to happen over and over? But we see that Donald Trump has just continued to say that he doesn't know her, that he didn't assault her, that she is a quote unquote liar, and that is problematic. That's the definition of defamation here. So I think it's possible the damages awarded due to the fact that he was undeterred in the past could be much, much higher. Savannah Jo.
All right, Angela Senadella, as always, thank you. Well, millions of people are starting to get much needed relief from the severe winter weather that gripped the nation last week. Record-breaking icy temperatures swept through the south while states in the north were blanketed with snow. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch has the latest from Detroit.
Hey, good morning, guys. After a days-long Arctic blast has been pummeling much of the country, for millions, a warm-up could soon be on the way. That could start to happen as early as today. And by midweek, take a look at these numbers. New York City could hit 43 degrees. Atlanta could hit 64. And this, of course, will be relief from what has been not only a nuisance, but dangerous cold. According to officials nationwide, there have been at least 63 weather-related fatalities reported since January 12th. The big chill over the weekend setting record lows, including 20 below in Sioux City, Iowa. And as far south as Florida, there are situations where iguanas have been known to become immobile in the cold and even fall from trees. So that's something to keep an eye out for as well. And again, we are hoping to be getting a warm up out here in Detroit, for example. But even in the cold, Lions fans celebrating here in Motor City, heading to their first NFC championship game in more than 30 years. Back to you guys.
All right, Jesse Kirsch, stay warm. Thank you.
That wind is keeping it warm. That relief from the cold comes a soggy start to the week for parts of the plains and the Midwest.
For more on that, we've got NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman with us in studio this morning. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Hi there, guys. Great to see you. And yeah, we're kind of a mess to start out with. Once again, I'm really busy, and we're looking at this radar showing us that we have a lot going on. We have a warm side to the storm system. We have some storms down in portions of the Central Plains, and then we have a lot of ice falling. That's where you see the pink, and we could see accumulating ice in some spots, a quarter inch, a half inch. That's going to make for really slippery travel, but also bring down some power lines. It's going to create some power outages, especially in portions of Arkansas, Oklahoma, into Missouri. On the cold side, we're looking at lots of snow in some spots. We're looking at some snow to the northern plains. When I say lots of snow, I mean areas of snow. And then as we look towards the west, we're really messy there, too. We have a series of storms that have been moving on shore, and we're going to see that once again this week. So as we go throughout the day, we're looking at really heavy rainfall. That's going to bring localized flooding, also some really higher mountain snow, and some ice as well. So kind of a repeat performance there. 57 million people under winter alerts still on this Monday morning. We're looking at winter storm advisories, winter storm warnings. That is in the pink. And then ice storm warnings in the purple. And again, that's where we could see some really tricky travel as we go throughout the day. This is a setup. We have an area of low pressure. It's pulling that moisture off the Gulf, and that's why we're going to see really heavy rain throughout the south central states along the Gulf Coast. And it's not just today. It's tomorrow, also Wednesday. We could see a total of 10 inches of rain in some spots. And then we're looking to look at that freezing rain as well as that snow falling. So heavy rain and flood risk increases in the southern plains. As we go throughout tomorrow, we're going to see a narrow band of snow. This is on the cold side of the system into portions of the Northeast and also New England. New Hampshire could see some light snow. We're not expecting any travel troubles there for the primary, but could see some light snow falling as we go throughout the day on Tuesday. Still some really heavy rain in the south central states, into the lower Mississippi Valley, into the Gulf Coast states, and could see some stormy weather as well. Then Wednesday, Gulf moisture continues to enhance rainfall. You see all these bright colors. That's where we expect the highest amounts of rain. So the reds, the yellows, the oranges, and still some freezing rain returning to the upper Midwest. That's where you're seeing those pinks kind of showing up. So we could see some sleet in addition to some freezing rain. For the New Hampshire primary, I mentioned those light snow showers. Not a whole lot of problems. It's going to be chilly with temperatures at or below freezing in a lot of spots, but we'll see that light snow developing in the afternoon and evening. Not expecting a lot of accumulation. Let's talk about the rainfall. It's a lot. We're looking at the Gulf Coast states into the lower Mississippi Valley, the Tennessee Valley, where you see those reds, the oranges, the yellows. That's where we're going to see a lot of rainfall. And we could see locally up to 10 inches. And look at all this ice. It's really expansive. We're looking at portions of the Central Plains into the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, even parts of extreme the Northeast, the interior parts of the Northeast. So we're going to look up for power outages there. Snowfall, not expecting a whole lot, but we're looking at some snow for portions of the Great Lakes once again into parts of New England and the interior parts of the Northeast. But here's the good news. We are trending warmer. Not exactly today in most spots. We're going to be above average finally in parts of the upper Midwest and also parts of New England. But we're still pretty chilly in New York City. We're still below average, just 37 today. But look at that yellow popping in. That's telling us that we have some warmer air coming in finally. We're looking at temperatures in the 60s and 70s in spots. Houston, 71 degrees, 6 degrees above average. Raleigh, 54, 41 degrees. Doesn't sound that warm, but much warmer than where we have been. So 2 degrees above average in New York City. And then as we go towards the later part of the week, by Thursday, 50 degrees, Friday, 57.
57?
This, I know.
Break out the shorts.
I would like, what color shorts? I'd like to see those shorts with those legs, winter legs.
They're very white.
Me too. Me too. Unfortunately, that warm weather at this time of year always comes at a cost. We're going to have some rain, but we're going to have warm weather.
Okay.
Soggy shorts.
I'll take it.
Soggy
shorts.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you. Coming up, they say a penny saved is a penny earned. And if you've got loose cash hanging around, it could end up saving you money in more ways than one. Why some businesses are making cash king once again.
First, though, we are getting an inside look at the kinds of tunnels where Israel says Hamas was holding some of its hostages. Stay with us. That's up next.
We're back with the latest on the war between Israel and Hamas. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says at least 25,000 people there have now been killed.
The new death toll comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to reject a two-state solution following the war. Over the weekend, Netanyahu said, quote, "I will not compromise on full Israeli security control over all the territory west of Jordan." And this is contrary to a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, we are learning new details about the Hamas tunnels in Gaza, including where hostages may have been held.
NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez is in Tel Aviv with the latest. Raf, good morning. So let's start with your look inside the Gaza tunnels where Israel says Hamas was holding hostages. Walk us through what you saw, and was there any indication that hostages may have been kept there?
Guys, good morning. We traveled with the Israeli military to the city of Han Yunis in southern Gaza. They showed us what looked like an ordinary house, and then they took us into the basement and they showed us this tunnel underneath it. And it is hard to overstate the scale of this tunnel. We were walking in the dark for about 10 minutes. The air was hot, thick, damp, gloomy. And at the end, we reached what Israel says is effectively a dungeon. 5 cells, cage doors that lock from the outside, and the Israeli military says around 20 hostages were held in there. We asked them, what evidence do you have that hostages were kept in this specific facility? They said they found hair and other DNA evidence from the hostages. They say the compound matched testimony from released hostages who were freed back in November. And guys, they said they found a drawing made by a little girl called Emilia Aloni, who drew these pictures, kids' pictures, during her 49 days in captivity. And you look at that and you can only imagine what it was like for this little girl spending all those weeks down there in the darkness. Yes.
Raf, meanwhile, hostage negotiations have once again stalled for those who do remain in Gaza. Over the weekend, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he will not accept Hamas's demand for an end to the war in exchange for those hostages. Is there any hope that they will be released? How are families responding to sort of what we're hearing from Netanyahu?
So the families are no longer hiding their frustration. They were gathered outside Netanyahu's official residence in Jerusalem last night, and today some of them stormed into a parliamentary committee meeting, and their message is that time is running out for their loved ones. 136 or so hostages still being held in Gaza, and they want the hostages to be the Israeli government's top priority, and they are infuriated by this repeated claim that we're hearing from Prime Minister Netanyahu that Israel's war will continue until it reaches, quote, total victory. They say they have no idea what total victory means, and they believe that the best chance to get their loved ones out alive is a deal that most likely means an end to the war, a mass release of Palestinian prisoners to bring their loved ones back. And it is worth remembering, guys, the Israeli military has been operating in Gaza for nearly 3 months. They have rescued one hostage alive in that entire time. Guys.
So, Raf, President Biden's also responding to Netanyahu's refusal of a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. Here's some of that conversation with NBC's Monica Alba.
Do you think that Prime Minister Netanyahu will change his mind on an opposition to a two-state solution, sir?
Yes, given the right one. Do you think you can convince maybe Netanyahu to a two-state solution?
Are you on the same...
So this difference right now, how is that impacting the war, and how are other international groups responding to Netanyahu's continued refusal to consider a two-state solution? What's going to give here?
It's a really good question, Joe. The thing to remember about the two-state solution, an independent Palestinian state alongside a secure Israel, is that it's not just a way of ending this war. It's a way to try to end the 100-year Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Nobody here, nobody in the White House thinks that there's going to be a two-state solution overnight. But the White House is deeply frustrated that Netanyahu repeatedly, publicly, is saying he is not going to allow for a Palestinian state under any circumstances. The argument from the Biden administration is there's never going to be enduring peace here unless there is a long-standing political agreement that involves the Palestinians having their own sovereignty, no longer being under Israeli occupation. You've heard frustration also from the Secretary General of the United Nations at Netanyahu's refusal to engage on a two-state solution. The argument Netanyahu would make is that Israel cannot be secure if there is a Palestinian state neighboring it where attacks could potentially be launched from. Guys.
Raf, before we let you go, I do want to ask you about this U.S. base in Iraq that was attacked with ballistic missiles over the weekend. What more can you tell us?
So Iranian-backed militants in Iraq attacking the Al-Assad air base with ballistic missiles and with rockets. This is one of more than 140 attacks on U.S. bases across the Middle East since the start of the war in Gaza. The military is saying a number of service personnel are being assessed for potential traumatic brain injuries. And this is the same base, guys, you might remember, that 4 years ago was targeted by Iran in retaliation for the U.S. assassination of that senior Iranian general, Qasem Soleimani. Guys.
All right, Raf Sanchez, thank you as always for your reporting. Appreciate it.
Let's turn now to Somalia, where 2 missing U.S. Navy SEALs have now been declared dead following a 10-day search, according to U.S. Central Command. The pair went missing after one SEAL fell into rough waters while trying to board a vessel suspected of carrying Iranian weapons. The second SEAL dove in to assist following Navy protocol. The pair have not been publicly identified, and officials say no further information would be made immediately available out of respect for their families.
Now to what else is making international headlines, starting with the latest from the war in Ukraine.
NBC News international correspondent Ali Arouzi joins us now. Hey, Ali, good morning.
Good morning, guys. That's right. Ukrainian shelling in the Russian-controlled city of Donetsk in eastern Ukraine has killed at least 25 people and left dozens others injured. according to the Russian-appointed head of the region. The city's Russian-installed mayor had reported that Ukrainian forces bombarded a busy area where shops and a market were located. However, Russia's claims can't be verified. In his nightly video address, President Zelensky didn't address the attack, but said in a single day, Russia had shelled more than 100 cities, towns and villages in 9 regions in Ukraine, and that the attacks in Donetsk's region had been particularly severe. Over to India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi has inaugurated a new $217 million Hindu temple that will stand in place of a mosque that was destroyed by radical Hindu militants more than 3 decades ago, setting off riots across the country that killed about 2,000 people, mostly Muslims. For some, the inauguration marks a hugely significant religious moment. Others, however, have boycotted the ceremony, accusing Modi of orchestrating the event for political gain ahead of elections in the spring, where he'll seek a 3rd term in power. And finally, over to Mexico, where Benito the giraffe is leaving a zoo on the Mexican border for a better climate. Environmentalists have been campaigning to move Benito due to extreme weather at the city zoo across the border from El Paso, Texas, where temperatures in the summer are brutally hot and icy during the winter. Over the weekend, a crane carefully lifted a container holding Benito onto a truck, and he was taken to a conservation park in central Mexico, where the climate is more akin to his natural habit and already home to some other giraffes. And those are your international headlines, guys.
What a feat, moving a giraffe.
I know, that is like a very specialized moving technique.
Yeah, I love that.
Allie, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, coming up this year's flu season, it's turning out to be even harder on kids and teens.
What's behind the deadly spike and what parents need to look out for? We'll bring you that next.
We are back now with a health alert for parents, as experts warn this flu season is turning out to be a hard one for kids. So far this season, 47 kids and teens have died from the virus, according to the CDC's latest weekly flu report.
Concerns are now rising, with doctors saying these numbers put the U.S. on track with last year's flu season, which ended with 183 pediatric deaths.
Joining us now for more on this is NBC News medical reporter Erica Edwards, who has been following this. Erica, good morning. So tell us, why is this season shaping up to impact children harder this year? What are doctors seeing?
Yeah, good morning, Savannah and Joe. You know, even though the flu season appears to be slowing somewhat, pediatricians across the country are still telling me that they are seeing an influx of kids sick with the flu. You can just see it on their faces. They just look miserable. Most cases involve flu A, but there's also a fair number of flu B cases, which we know tend to be more severe in children. Savannah, Joe?
So what are some of the symptoms that doctors are seeing in kids this season? And at what point should a parent take their kid to the doctor, or maybe take them back to the doctor if things are getting worse?
Yeah, great question. So kids can have a whole range of symptoms, right? They can have sore throat, runny noses, upset stomach. But usually what's happening with the flu is prolonged fevers, up to 103, 104 for up to a week. Now, it's really important for parents to watch for trouble breathing, but also dehydration, which can be a little bit difficult to detect in babies. That can mean eyes that are sunken in, crying, they're not producing any tears. Babies and toddlers might be drooling a little less than usual, and then saliva that really just becomes thick, and it leading to that drooling a little bit less. Guys?
Well, people can catch the flu, all year round. Experts say cases usually spike right about now. Given that overall cases are declining, are doctors worried about a second spike this season? Like, have we reached that peak yet?
Well, you're exactly right. So even though we're starting to see signs that the flu season may have peaked, that means we still have half the flu season to go. And it's not uncommon for additional spikes in the flu in February or March, even additional strains like flu B, which can be more severe in kids.
So knowing that could still be ahead of us, for those folks who did not get the flu shot yet, what are doctors telling them about whether they should get it?
Yeah, and even though it's mid to late January, believe it or not, it is not too late to get the flu shot this season. And also, getting the flu shot now does not preclude someone from getting the next seasonal influenza vaccine later this year for next season, guys.
All right, Erica Edwards, great info as always. Thank you.
Sticking with health news, a new kind of medical facility is on the rise in the U.S. Prescribed pediatric extended care centers, also known as medical daycares for kids with special health needs. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro got to visit one in Florida to see what kind of care it provides.
In Clearwater, Florida,
Good job.
tender loving care comes with a special set of skills.
Bye-bye.
These
There we go.
are healthcare professionals caring for medically complex children that often aren't accepted at traditional daycares and schools. Spark Pediatrics is a prescribed pediatric extended care center, or PPEC, also referred to as a medical daycare.
Every day there's something new and inspiring that each little one is doing. So whether it's learning how to walk, whether it's learning how to start talking, feeding, just those little things that we kind of take for granted, these are huge milestones for them to be achieving.
Some of these little ones have life-threatening conditions that affect 2 or more organ systems.
When he first started, he was on continuous oxygen.
18-month-old Andrew John has Down syndrome and a heart defect. His time spent here already proving to be life-saving when he went into cardiac arrest and needed CPR.
Our team is quick to respond and so confident. It's nice to have multiple people who know what they're doing.
After he was born, Andrew's parents were unaware that care like this even existed.
A few months go by. It's time to go back to work.
We were like, what do we do? I had a case manager, and she said, well, do you know about the PPECs? I'm like, no, what is that called? What is that? I felt like this was something I should have known from the hospital when I walked out that door.
Only about 20 states have facilities like this, and of those, only 5 to 10 centers per state. But Florida has the most, about 150 statewide. To qualify in Florida, children must be under 21 years old, eligible for Medicaid, have a complex medical condition, and a written order from a physician.
The activities that you'll find in our center are very similar to that of a daycare. They're doing arts and crafts, or they're having fun every day. They're socializing, but they're able to do that under the care and supervision of nurses, which is really critical.
This sounds expensive, but what is the cost to families?
It's zero. So this is 100% funded by Medicaid.
Medicaid reimburses a PPEC a fixed rate for providing medically necessary basic services. The care in Florida costs about $264 per day. State funding for PPECs in Florida has increased by 33% since 2017, and in Texas by 46%. The John family now hoping to spread awareness so other parents can get support right away.
I see the love there, and to me as a parent that has a child that has special needs like that, that's the type of environment he needs to be around.
Andrew making progress, one crawl at a time.
And our thanks to Valerie Castro for that story. Coming up, despite concerns over the economy, Wall Street ended the week on a record high.
We are digging into what's behind the rise and what it means for your bottom line. Stick with us on Morning News Now.
We're back now with some good news for your money. The stock market closed last Friday at a new record high, the first time that's happened in 2 years.
And despite worries about a recession amid all those interest rate hikes we've seen by the Federal Reserve, not to mention rising consumer debt, consumer confidence is as strong as it's been since 2021.
Investopedia editor-in-chief Caleb Silver joins us now with more on that new high, what it means for both Wall Street and Main Street alike. Good to have you with us, Caleb. So let's focus on Wall Street first. The S&P 500 hit a new record on Friday. What does that mean for investors in 2024? What does that tell us?
That's a good sign. We usually say the trend is your friend, and the trend, guys, for the last 2.5 months has been up and to the right. But just think about this. It took 2 years to get back to a new all-time high for the stock market. That's the longest gap between lows and highs since the great financial crisis, 2008 to 2013. And we've been through a lot, right? We've been through inflation up and down the ladder. We've been through several interest rate hikes, and we've been through a lot of distractions that could have knocked this stock market off. It didn't. Investors bullish going into 2024.
So, Caleb, I think it's kind of confusing for a lot of people when we hear all this good news, because last year there was so much talk. We talked so much about a potential recession, and then we never really saw that, and the stock market ended the year up 24%. Tell us how that happened.
Yeah, it's kind of a disconnect because the stock market and the economy are not the same thing. Sometimes they wind up at the same party, but usually the stock market and investors are way out ahead of economic news. And what did they see? They saw inflation coming down, and they saw the fact that the Federal Reserve is going to be lowering interest rates this year, probably about 3 times. So usually investors in the stock market preceding what's going to happen in the economy, they think things are going to get better. And if you look at the way consumers are behaving, even though we're at record high credit card debt and we're spending ourselves silly, they think it's bullish, and we're going to keep spending because the labor market is still really strong.
So, Gail, that's where I guess I get a little confused. Record high credit debt, mounting bankruptcies, but then this high confidence, highest in years, according to the latest consumer sentiment surveys. At the end of the day, how does that shape the average American's bottom line this year? Does something have to give, or at this point, can we continue to kind of go down this path?
Well, we're going to keep spending because that's just what we do. But as long as the job market remains robust and unemployment is under that 4% where it is right now, and wages keep rising, and they have been about 4% year over year, consumers are going to keep spending. The labor market remains tight and companies don't do mass layoffs. You're going to see that continue, and economic activity in general around this country normalizing a little bit. Investors like that. They like to be able to see the future, and that's why they're so bullish. That's why we're back at record highs. Usually when we're at record highs, the next step is another record high. It might not be a year like last year, but the stock market seems pretty strong, good breadth across pretty much all sectors.
All right, Caleb Silver. Caleb, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Let's stay on financial headlines for you now. The FAA is urging airlines to inspect their Boeing 737 aircraft.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. Yeah, so the FAA is recommending airlines operating Boeing 737-900ER jets inspect the door plugs to make sure they're properly secured after some have reported issues with the bolts. Now, this latest move, it follows the grounding of 171 Boeing 737 MAX 9 planes after the blowout on an Alaska Airlines flight earlier this month. The 737-900, it's not part of the newer MAX fleet, but it does have the same optional door plug design. The FAA says the MAX 9 will remain grounded until it's satisfied they are safe to return to service. Apple may have sold up to 180,000 pre-orders for the Vision Pro this weekend. That's according to a top analyst. But he says this still points to the headset being a niche product as it's expensive and will lack big-name apps like Netflix and Spotify. Now, the analyst says shipping times remain unchanged, which may signal a quick drop in demand after the heavy users and hardcore fans are done pre-ordering. And listen to this. More than 40% of couples have kept or are keeping at least one financial secret from their significant other. A new report from Bankrate says those include spending more than their partner would be okay with, holding any amount of secret debt, and having a secret saving or checking account or credit card. Now, more than a third say any financial infidelity is at least as bad as physical infidelity. Among those who admit it, more than a third cite privacy and control over finances as their motivation, guys. There you have it.
A lot of thoughts on that one.
All right.
Yeah. Not time to unpack them, no. Silvana, thank you very much.
You got it.
If you've got loose cash hanging around, you could be in for some good deals. Some businesses are now offering as much as 10% discounts if you pay in cash. Here's NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans.
On the menu at this restaurant in New York, linguine, oysters, and a 10% discount if you pay with cash.
We came up with this idea just to push sales, to give an incentive to our guests to come back to spend more.
Owner Lamia Funti started offering it during the pandemic, and it's been so successful, she kept it.
We have seen an increase.
At Isabella's Pizza Pub in Greensboro, North Carolina, a 3% discount if you pay with cash.
Talk to us a little bit about why you have a cash discount at your pizza pub.
I put the cash discount into place to help reduce our fees as a business, to incent the customers to pay in cash, which will help me increase the pay of my employees.
For businesses like Kathy's, those fees can add up. She says she paid over $30,000 last year to credit card companies. The cash discount has long been common at gas stations, and often your plumber or electrician will offer you a better cash deal too. But recently, more Americans are finding ways to cash in on these deals. In fact, the amount of cash purchases with a discount soared 66% from 2015 to 2022. Andrews Young has been only using cash for 2 years and saves $50 a month.
If I can get a discount, why not?
Now you can find cash deals at places you wouldn't necessarily think of. Some car dealerships offer discounts. So do auto body shops and even furniture stores. And if you're getting married, you're in luck. Many wedding vendors will give you a deal if you pay in cash, from the venue to the photographer, even for the dress. And for Andrews, bowling.
I would say some of the places that I'm seeing the cash discount be useful for is in gas, entertainment, and then also with service-based work.
And we're not talking chump change. These discounts can range from 3 to more than 10%. Most transactions are still put on a credit card, so cash may not be king just yet. Paying in cash won't build your credit score, but it does offer one other benefit.
When you use cash, there's no interest rate on it either if you can't pay it off.
Correct. So once you use it, it's paid for, it's done with, you don't have to worry about it.
Christine Romans, NBC News.
Well, coming up, a historic weekend in Detroit as the Lions book a ticket to the NFC Championship for the first time in more than 3 decades.
We're breaking down a wild weekend of playoff football next. So from coast to coast, this weekend was filled with celebration and heartbreak on the football field.
In San Francisco, the 49ers secured their spot in the conference championship game after handing a devastating loss to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. The Buffalo Bills were also sent packing in heartbreaking fashion, coming up short to the defending champion at Kansas City Chiefs. Well, the Baltimore Ravens and Detroit Lions are also advancing, setting up another exciting weekend of football.
For more, let's bring in NBC Sports host and reporter Corey Robinson. Corey, good to have you with us. So let's start with the matchup between the Ravens and Chiefs. This is a highly anticipated game between the two best quarterbacks in the league. So is this the year Lamar Jackson gets over the hump and tops Patrick Mahomes, or is Mahomes just going to do what he usually does and go to the Super Bowl?
That's such an unfair question. I mean, to bet against Patrick Mahomes is probably the dumbest thing one could ever do, right? And so I don't want to do that. But I went back, I went back to 2018 to the NFL draft, primetime. Deion Sanders interviewed Lamar Jackson. He said, are you disappointed you slipped to the last pick of the first round? And the first thing he said was, I promise you they're going to get a Super Bowl out of me. Even last offseason, Lamar Jackson was saying, okay, look, I'm not happy yet. I'm not happy. I know I got the MVP my second year. I'm not happy. I want a Super Bowl. All season long, Tom Brady's even asked some questions of why do you still have this chip on your shoulder? It's the Super Bowl he wants. And this guy is just driven. I mean, so right now, I think the Ravens are the best team, obviously, and I think that they're going to probably get to the Super Bowl. I think they're that good right now.
As we say at Ravens games, MVP, right? It's time. All right, now let's preview the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners spent much of the season as the front runner for the Super Bowl. Do we think the Lions have it in them to pull off a major upset? What do you think?
I believe in miracles. Christmas kind of passed already. I just think for me, look, Detroit is legit. They're real. And I'm so happy to see them have success. I'm happy the city's celebrating first time since 1991 that they're in. Barry Sanders was there. Calvin Johnson was there. Everyone was there at that playoff game. However, the 49ers are just from top to bottom. They have one of the most talented rosters I've ever seen. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The one issue, I think, when I watched that game against the Packers, the 49ers did not look good. I thought they looked very shaky, but they won. And I think that's the big thing for me. I'm like, okay, you could play a bad game and still come off winning. That means that, there's a pretty good chance. Hey, look, I'll be in the locker room talking to my guys saying, we only go up from here. We played one of the worst games I've ever seen, and we're still in the conference championship game. So I would feel very confident if I was the 49ers right now.
And, of course, Lions never been to the Super Bowl, so this would be the first time. One of 4 teams who've never been. So, Corey, let's get your predictions for next week. You've kind of been hinting at things, but who do you think is going to go to the Super Bowl? Who do you want to see in the Super Bowl? Are those the same things?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I don't really. I mean, my only horse is in college. So what I think is going to happen is I think the Chiefs are going to play a number. It's going to be one of the best games ever because Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, number 1 scoring defense, number 2 scoring defense. I mean, it's going to be crazy. I think the Ravens are going to edge out the Chiefs. And I think on the other side, the 49ers, I think if they just play a good game, the game that they're capable of playing, they'll beat the Lions and in the fairy tale. And I think we'll see 49ers again in the Super Bowl playing against the Ravens. I think Lamar will win his first Super Bowl.
Got to choose my husband versus Taylor Swift.
Right, which is quite
next
the commitment for you.
Yeah, I know. For my husband, we are Baltimore Ravens through and through. I love the team. I got to do a really cool story with them, but obviously the expectation is Taylor will also be there. It's going to be a big day for me.
I feel like the NFL would love to see the Lions with that story and the Chiefs with Taylor Swift. I mean, wouldn't that just be the thing that's the most promotable?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Corey, what do you think?
let me just call Roger real quick. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but yeah, the thing is the Chiefs. I'm telling you, the thing's so crazy because I thought, well, maybe, right? I mean, after they lost Tyreek Hill, I know that they still won. I'm like, okay, well, is this the end of the dynasty? And then the way that they just kind of turned it on the last part of the season, and Travis Kelce's playing out of his mind that last playoff game. You know, I'm happy that Taylor Swift brought whatever mojo to the arena. I mean, it was unbelievable to see them do that in Buffalo. So I think you might be onto something, but I'm going to root for you, Savannah. I think it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and how much of a difference do you think it makes? I mean, this will be back-to-back weekends for the Chiefs having to be on the road.
Yeah, this is like the real, and I'm so happy you brought that up. 6 straight conference championship games for the Chiefs. Unbelievable. I mean, it's a short list, less than 3 or 4 teams in NFL history to ever do that. But 5 of those were at home.
Right.
Mahomes is 13-3 in postseason play, and he's only played, this will be his second true playoff game, you know, if you don't count neutral sites for the Super Bowl. It's absolutely insane. So, yeah, to be on the road again in the environment that Baltimore brings, I don't know if you've ever been to a game there. It's a pretty crazy.
That is.
It's going to be a really interesting test. The thing about the Chiefs, though, is that they played a really great game, one of the best games I've ever seen, and they barely won. It came down to the Buffalo Bills missing a field goal. So that really
so true.
All right, we'll see what happens. Corey, we didn't even ask you about Jason Kelce, but we'll move on from there. All right, Corey Robinson, thank you so much.
Thank you. Great to see you.
It's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now. Good Monday morning. Hope you're joining us after a great weekend. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, White House dreams for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis are dashed. He surprised many in the political world, announcing he was suspending his presidential campaign just 2 days ahead of New Hampshire's GOP primary. DeSantis then turned around and endorsed former President Trump. So how does this shake up tomorrow's first in the nation primary? We'll break it all down. Is the Great American Warm-Up on the way after days of bone-chilling cold and seemingly endless amounts of snow for millions across the country? Temperatures are expected to rise this week, so what can you expect in the coming days? We've got your full forecast in just a moment. We're also watching your money on this Monday morning. Wall Street tapping some new record highs. That's good news for the American consumer, who's now feeling pretty bullish on the state of the economy. But is it all good news? We're diving into some new data and, of course, what it all means for your bottom line. And if you're looking ahead to warmer weather while keeping an eye on your wallet, we've got some tips later in the hour on when to jump on some of those spring break travel deals. Because that is coming up quickly.
Yeah, there you go. That's kind of fun to think about.
Exactly. A warmer
Yeah.
destination. We're going to begin with the battle for the Republican Party's presidential nomination. Now a 2-horse race after Florida Governor Ron DeSantis suspended his campaign on Sunday and endorsed former President Trump.
Yeah, DeSantis' withdrawal leaves former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley as the only challenger to Trump ahead of tomorrow's New Hampshire primary. NBC News correspondent Garrett Hake has the latest from Manchester, New Hampshire.
Hey, Joe, Savannah, good morning. Yeah, less than a week ago, Ron DeSantis was celebrating his distant second-place finish in Iowa. Now he's out of this race, a race that got a major jolt with that decision over the weekend, now down to just 2 candidates, and it could be all but decided tomorrow night right here in New Hampshire.
I'd like to take time to congratulate Ron DeSantis.
With another challenger in his rearview mirror, Donald Trump welcoming the endorsement of former rival Ron DeSantis.
He was very gracious and he endorsed me, so I appreciate it. I appreciate that, and I also look forward to working with Ron.
The kind words from Trump, a sharp break from what has been a bitter battle between the 2 GOP candidates.
So Ron DeSanctimonious, he was very upset.
Less than a week after finishing a distant second in Iowa, DeSantis suspending his campaign Sunday in a pre-taped video message that included throwing his support behind Mr. Trump.
Trump is superior to the current incumbent, Joe Biden. That is clear. I signed a pledge to support the Republican nominee and I will honor that pledge.
DeSantis' departure from the race so sudden, some supporters had already arrived at a campaign event he had scheduled hours later.
I would like to have seen him stay in just to give the American electorate some choice.
For Republicans, that choice now Trump or Haley, who welcomed the news of the shrinking field overnight.
It's now one fella and one lady left.
Haley also sharpening her attacks on Trump, highlighting his age, after Trump seemed to repeatedly confuse her with Nancy Pelosi when discussing the Capitol riots.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. We offered her 10,000 people, soldiers, National Guard, so whatever they want.
Haley weighing in.
They're saying he got confused. When you're dealing with the pressures of a presidency, we can't have someone else that we question whether they're mentally fit to do this.
She's counting on a strong showing here after a disappointing third-place finish in Iowa. But two new polls released this weekend showed Haley trailing Trump by double digits here, with only 1 day left to change minds.
Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't vote in this primary on Tuesday.
The other big challenge for Nikki Haley is how fast this field is consolidating around Donald Trump. In just the last week, he's now gotten 3 endorsements from former candidates, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tim Scott over the weekend, and now Ron DeSantis. It's part of a surge towards Trump within the Republican Party. Nikki Haley's running out of time to stop it. Joe, Savannah.
All right, Garrett Haig, thank you.
For more, let's bring in Ozzie Pabura. He's a national reporter for The Washington Post. Good to have you with us. So first of all, just reaction to DeSantis' withdrawal at this time in the primary race. In the end, what went wrong for him?
I mean, he's a person who was running against Trump without trying to challenge Trump. And as we've seen with other candidates, that is not a successful formula in today's Republican Party. He had tried to position himself as somebody who can deliver what Trump promised without Trump's personalities or distractions. And voters in Iowa made very clear they wanted Trump with all of the baggage and everything else that comes with it. DeSantis's argument, which was more of a policy-based argument, maybe he was also trying to run out the clock to see what legal challenges might trip up the former president. It wasn't working for the people, for the voters that he was courting. Nikki Haley, later in the campaign, has decided to more directly challenge Trump and potentially try to court together a winning coalition of anti-Trump Republicans who are still in the party. It is yet to be seen if that coalition, if that group of voters is still there in significant numbers.
So DeSantis follows Vivek Ramaswamy as the latest candidate to withdraw and then go on to endorse Trump. Do you think Trump could bring DeSantis into the fold more going forward? Are we going to see them appearing together?
It's not clear. There's obviously an interest that DeSantis has in keeping opportunities open in the future. Obviously, there's 2028 when whoever gets elected this year will not be able to run again for re-election. So a lot of the candidates who are running in the Republican primary did sort of have an eye on what is next, that next election. DeSantis did not seem to be a person who was open to the idea of working under Trump or in a Trump administration. Obviously, for the immediate future, some of these candidates are going to act as surrogates to get through the primary and into the general election. But DeSantis never positioned himself as somebody who wanted to sort of carry Trump's mantle so directly. Vivek Ramaswamy clearly never attacked Trump, wanted to be sort of part of that fold, part of that administration, appeared with him immediately. It's not clear how much DeSantis is going to be able to do that or how much he actually wants to do that. There are two sort of things on everyone's horizon, which is Trump 2024 and an open field in 2028.
So let's look ahead before we go to 2028 to the New Hampshire primary tomorrow. We are down to 2 candidates. So how do you see this playing out? What does Nikki Haley have to do in the New Hampshire primary to make an argument that she should be staying in this race?
She has to improve on what she did in Iowa. She finished a distant third. Trump got about 51% of the vote in Iowa. If Trump increases his spread over Haley, if he racks up 55, maybe even 60% in that, it will demonstrate to a lot of other people within the party that voters have made clear who they want. And the longer a challenge goes on in this Republican primary, the weaker Trump's argument is that he's inevitable, that everybody in the party wants him. The longer there's a fight, the less inevitable Trump will feel. And Trump's, one of his main arguments to voters has been that he's winning. Remember, he used to say, are you tired of winning? Well, if he can't lock this up soon, it will sort of chip away at this notion that he's been able to sell a lot of his voters. Democrats are standing by watching this play out for as long as possible. But I think many Democrats are already expecting Trump to be the nominee.
All right. Ozzy Pebara, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, millions of Americans who've been dealing with bitter cold and snow may get a much-needed break this week. NBC News correspondent Jesse Kirsch is in Detroit with more on what's shaping up to be a little bit of a winter warm-up here. Hey, Jesse, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning, but I think we just jinxed it because I just got blasted with more cold air here. We've been dealing with temperatures in the teens this morning with the wind chill. It's felt like the single digits, but that's actually a warm-up compared to where we were over the weekend. And Detroit is not alone. On the heels of this brutal cold, many of us pretty soon could be thawing out. After a brutal Arctic blast that's been punishing the country with bone-chilling cold, this morning for millions, a much-needed warm-up could soon be on the way. For days, much of the country has been stuck with temperatures well below average, freezing everything from roads to noodles. But things could begin turning around starting today. By midweek, New York City could hit 43 degrees, Atlanta 64. The about phase comes after days of record-setting dangerous cold from coast to coast, with at least 63 weather-related fatalities reported nationwide since January 12th. Meanwhile, this warming shelter in Wilmington, North Carolina, has helped dozens in recent days.
I've been doing this for 7 years now, and every year it just gets worse and worse. Yesterday, we had 85 people.
And today?
Today is 115.
The big temperature drops also impacting South Florida, where iguanas have been known to become immobile in the cold, even falling from trees.
He's frozen.
The cold weather did not stop the NFL playoffs this weekend. Near Buffalo, fans once again helping dig out the Bills stadium before their big game.
We're willing to help whatever it takes for our team.
Back here in Detroit, the fans here didn't have to dig anything out in the stadium because they play indoors here in Detroit, and it was a party here last night. Savannah, we've still got snow on the ground. The streets are looking pretty clear, and by the end of the work week, we could be seeing temperatures in the 40s in Motor City. Savannah?
Yeah, lots of news there, right? The
Exactly.
weather and the Lions. Jesse, thank you very much.
All right, let's bring back NBC News meteorologist Michelle Grossman.
Yeah, she's tracking that warmer weather that's on the way for the East Coast. Michelle, good morning. What can we expect?
Good morning, guys. So happy to start with this good news. Yeah, we're going to see that warming trend. Some spots not today, not tomorrow, but certainly by Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Some spots, though, above average finally. We were so cold in the northern part of the nation for the past week and a half, and we're going to be above average in Des Moines, 3 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. 34 degrees, 5 degrees above normal in portions of the upper Midwest as well. And then we're going to stay a little chilly as we head towards the middle of the country, the south central states, into portions of the Northeast, but getting closer to average in New York City. 37 today. We're going to be in the 40s and then eventually the 50s. Portland today, 34. That's 3 degrees above average. As we go towards Tuesday, many of us above average. Lots of yellow on the map here showing us that the warmer air is working in. Chicago finally into the average territory, if not a little bit above. 34 degrees. That's 4 degrees above what is typical for this time of year. 60s in Montgomery, Monroe, 70s in Houston, also in Tallahassee, Charleston, feeling really good at 66 tomorrow. And we're going to be at 41 degrees above average in New York City. Then as we go throughout the late week, we're looking at Cleveland into the 50s Thursday, 40s on Friday, 60s in Lexington on Thursday. Memphis looking good too. Temperatures in the 60s Wednesday and Thursday. And New York City, we're going to be near 57 degrees on Saturday, and then even warmer the next day. This is why the jet stream is lifting up. So it was so down far to the south that kind of opened those doors to kind of the Arctic air that came down. So now we're lifting back up. We're bringing in that southerly flow, and that's where we're going to be warmer. Buffalo by Thursday, 49. Friday, we're looking at temperatures in the 50s. Temperatures 18, even 15 degrees above normal for this time of year. Still really active, though, in terms of precipitation. We have a storm system that's working through the south central states, the Midwest into the Ohio Valley. We have that warm weather already working in portions of the south, and that's why we're seeing thunderstorms. We're seeing heavy rain rain with that moisture coming off the Gulf. Sandwiched in between, we have a kind of layer of cold air. That's bringing us a chance, and we're seeing it now, of freezing rain, some sleet in some spots. This is going to be dangerous in portions of Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma. Could see some really slow travel, could see some power outage as well, because we're going to see that ice accumulating. And then on the northern tier where we're colder, we're going to see that snow falling in portions of the Midwest, and then eventually into the Northeast. It's a mess still out west. We have a series after storm, and another storm coming later on this week. We're looking at heavy rain there too. Also looking at some freezing rain and mountain snow. 57 million people still under winter alerts. We're looking at winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, ice storm warnings. That's where we're looking at that purple there. So parts of Arkansas and also Missouri right near Springfield, looking at some really dicey weather. This is set up an area of low pressure, pulling that moisture off the Gulf, and it's moving all the way towards the northern part of the nation. So where you see those brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, that's where the heavy rain is going to fall. And we could see up to 10 inches in some spots over the next 3 days, because it's not just today. It's going to stay in place. It's sort of stationary, that boundary, bringing in that moisture Tuesday and also Wednesday. And then we'll see that narrow ribbon of snow moving into the Northeast. That could bring some light snow into portions of New Hampshire. Big day tomorrow, although we're not looking at accumulation, so shouldn't slow anyone down. Should be okay for the weather there for the primaries. Then as we go towards Wednesday, more Gulf moisture enhancing that rainfall. Freezing rain returning to the upper Midwest. That's where you're seeing those pinks and purples. Could see some sleet there as well. Here's your New Hampshire primary forecast. Increasing clouds throughout the day. Light snow showers. Not a lot of accumulation expected. That's good news. And I want to point this out because we're looking at the chance for some flooding conditions, not only today, but really through Thursday with all that rain. And that's mainly along the Gulf Coast into portions of the lower Mississippi Valley.
All right, something to keep an eye on. All right, Michelle, thanks so much.
Thank you, Michelle. Turning now to the Middle East, where tensions are running high after several U.S. military bases were attacked over the weekend. It comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to deny the possibility of a two-state solution in the region. The move is now threatening any hope that the Israeli hostages in Gaza could be released. NBC News foreign correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv with the latest here. Hi, Raf. Good morning.
Savannah, good morning. U.S. Central Command confirming overnight the deaths of 2 U.S. Navy SEALs who appear to have drowned during a mission off the coast of East Africa. Meanwhile, there has been no let-up in the wave of attacks by Iranian-backed militants against American forces in the region.
This morning, U.S. forces across the Middle East on high alert amid fears of a widening war. Overnight, the military calling off a 10-day search for 2 Navy SEALs lost at sea off the coast of Somalia. They died intercepting Iranian weapons hidden on this ship, the Navy says. Iran also supplying arms to militants in Iraq, who bombarded U.S. troops at this airbase with ballistic missiles over the weekend. An unknown number of service personnel now being assessed for potential traumatic brain injuries. While in Gaza, a once unthinkable milestone. 25,000 people now killed, according to the health ministry, the majority of them women and children. Ahmed Ruka burying his baby daughter Tala, having already lost his wife and 2 other children to an Israeli strike. Overnight, Israeli families demanding a deal to bring the hostages home. For some hostages, this is what the last 108 days underneath Gaza have looked like.
This tunnel just goes on and on and on.
It leads to what Israel says is a dungeon where Hamas held its prisoners. 5 cells with cage doors that lock from the outside. The air hot and thick.
What evidence do you have that hostages were actually kept here?
Most important thing, we have testimonies of hostages that verify this compound. We found here hair and other DNA.
You found hair and DNA from the hostages here.
Yeah, and other belongings.
They say they also found these pictures, drawn by 5-year-old Emilia Aloni before she was released after 49 days. A child trying to find light in this darkness.
And this morning, fighting is raging around the only major hospital in southern Gaza still functioning. A medical official at Nasser Hospital says 50 people have been killed in the area since last night. Their emergency room is overwhelmed, and they fear Israeli forces may soon storm inside. Savannah.
All right, Raf Sanchez, thank you very much. We've got much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the growing fallout this morning surrounding Boeing and that scary Alaska Airlines blowout earlier this month, why the FAA is now scrutinizing a separate model of its jets.
Plus, new health concerns for the royal family. More on the Duchess of York's troubling cancer diagnosis and the latest on Princess Kate's condition after undergoing a planned abdominal procedure last week. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We are back now with more fallout for Boeing this morning in the wake of that mid-air blowout that's grounded the MAX 9 planes.
The FAA is now telling airlines to inspect a second Boeing model. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin joins us now with more on this. So which model is the FAA concerned about and why?
Hey guys, well, the FAA issued a safety alert recommending visual inspections of mid-exit door plugs on Boeing 737-900ER planes because they have the same door design as the MAX 9 that is now grounded after that door panel that blew off mid-flight nearly 3 weeks ago. To be clear, this is a separate Boeing model, and the recommendation is for airlines to check whether the door plugs are properly secured as soon as possible. There were no specific incidents or problems that triggered this new move, with the FAA saying it is an added layer of safety as part of their investigation into the MAX 9.
So how many planes are we talking about here? And then does that mean we could see cancellations like we did with those MAX 9s?
Well, they say around 380 planes will be impacted, but so far no flight disruptions.
So how is Boeing responding to all this and this initial investigation into the MAX 9? Where do things stand with that one?
Well, in a statement to Boeing, it says it fully supports the FAA and our customers in this action. As for the MAX 9, 171 jets are currently grounded as the FAA continues its investigation and is evaluating data from 40 inspections of the MAX 9 aircraft. This overnight alert comes after airline inspections of the MAX 9 planes found some door plugs with loose bolts, prompting concerns that it could be a wider issue. Meanwhile, the FAA said the MAX 9 fleet will remain grounded until the agency is satisfied they are safe to return to service, which is impacting air travel and leading to more than 300 flights being canceled daily.
Wow. All right. Aaron, thank you so much for the latest here.
Now, new health concerns for the royal family. King Charles is set to undergo prostate treatment this week. Princess Kate is recovering from abdominal surgery. And just yesterday, Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, revealed that she has been diagnosed with skin cancer. NBC News foreign correspondent Molly Hunter joined us now from Buckingham Palace with the latest on all this. Hey, Molly, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. That's right. A lot of health news coming out of the royal family over the last week. And we are starting this week with the three most prominent senior royals, King Charles, Prince William, and of course, Princess Kate, all out of view. Take a look.
This morning, the two most prominent members of the royal family still sidelined, while the family is rattled by yet another health scare. The Princess of Wales is waking up this morning in the hospital, starting a second week of recovery after planned abdominal surgery.
Kate is going to be recovering until at least Easter, so we're not expecting to see her in public at all, but we're told that she will be keeping an eye on her projects and she will be working from her bed.
No public hospital visits over the weekend after we saw Prince William driving to visit his wife last Thursday. Kensington Palace still not saying why the 42-year-old mother of three needed the surgery last week, only that Kate would likely remain in the hospital for 10 to 14 days. Also, over the weekend, another royal health announcement. Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, announced she's been diagnosed with malignant melanoma following the removal of a cancerous mole during treatment for breast cancer. The 64-year-old was very open about her breast cancer treatment last year, posting this picture today explaining it was discovered during reconstructive surgery following a mastectomy, adding she remains in good spirits. And this all comes as King Charles gears up for his corrective procedure this week for an enlarged prostate.
How's His Majesty? He's fine, thank you very much. Looking forward to getting back to work.
No word on when the family will all next be together. Over the weekend on the West Coast, Prince Harry accepting an award for his service to the British Army, presented by John Travolta in a glamorous ceremony in L.A. He was included in the Living Legends of Aviation Awards, co-hosted by our very own Tom Costello for his role as forward air controller and Apache helicopter pilot during his service.
Flying has been a transcendent experience, a close encounter with magic, an invitation to both protect freedom and to feel free.
Nice to see Harry, though. But, Joe, one of the things we've been talking about is the difference between all three of these announcements. Now, Kensington Palace is treating Kate's condition with a lot of privacy, kind of in line with how royal health scares have been treated in the past. They did release information quickly, and they did say it was non-cancerous, but we have not gotten any additional updates. Meanwhile, the Duchess of York and King Charles really being quite transparent about it, really to get people and encourage people to get checked. In the Instagram post, Joe, that we just showed you in that piece, Sarah Ferguson said, "I believe my experience underlines the importance of checking the size, shape, color, and texture and emergence of new moles." Of course, she's talking about her skin cancer, urging everyone to be really diligent. I will say, though, we don't know when exactly, what day this week King Charles is going in for his procedure. Joe?
All right, Molly, on top of all of it for us. Thank you.
Now let's get to some more international headlines. This morning, rescuers are searching for people trapped after a massive landslide at a village in southwest China.
NBC News international correspondent Ali Arouzi has that and more world headlines. Ali, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Savannah. That's right. A massive landslide in China's Yunnan province has buried and trapped at least 47 people as rescue workers desperately search for them under freezing, snowy conditions. Authorities say that over 500 people have been evacuated and that 18 homes have been destroyed. Landslides are common in Yunnan, a province in southwest China where steep mountain ranges butt against the Himalayan plateau. Over to Cameroon, where they'll be the first country to routinely give children a new malaria vaccine. The campaign, which is due to be rolled out today, has been described by officials as a milestone in the decades-long effort to curb mosquito-spread disease on the continent, which accounts for 95% of the world's malaria deaths. The Central African nation hopes to vaccinate about 250,000 children this year and next year. Cameroon is also working with 20 other African countries to help them get the vaccine, with the goal of immunizing 6 million children through 2025. And finally, over to the Batu Caves, one of Malaysia's most popular tourist attractions. The religious site is home to an ancient Hindu temple housed at the top of a limestone cave. To get to it, visitors have to climb 272 steps. But for those who are unable or unwilling to take the steps, the custodians of the site are planning to install an escalator to make the 400-million-year-old cave site and temple more accessible. And those are your international headlines, guys.
That'll make it easier.
High tech there, huh? All right, Ali, thank you so much.
Coming up, putting the cents in dollars and cents.
After the break, we're going to introduce you to the third grade teacher who's now gone viral for her creative approach to financial literacy. Stay with us. It's up next. We are back with an incredible story of survival. A man in Indiana is speaking out after surviving being trapped in his truck for 6 days before he was found by two fishermen. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin spoke with all three men and shares their story.
Hang on, buddy. You stay there. We got medics coming, okay?
This emergency rescue underneath the Portage, Indiana overpass took hours. For Matthew Ream, the will to survive took even longer, 6 days.
What did you eat? What did you drink?
So I didn't eat anything. All the water and stuff from the road above me would wash down and land right in my sunroof. And I would take my sweatpants to where it would collect that water, and then I would basically suck the water out of my sweatpants.
Last month, Matthew says he was heading to a friend's funeral when he swerved to avoid a deer.
The guardrail basically just showed up on the left-hand side of my truck. And, after that, it was all downhill.
He was pinned inside his mangled truck, hidden underneath an overpass.
I can't feel the lower part of my leg. There's something wrong.
His phone wedged on the other side of the dashboard.
I was just yelling, please somebody help me. And I could hear sirens and I could hear voices out in the distance. And I would yell and nothing.
As the days went on, Matthew lost his will to live. He even considered ending his life.
There was just that voice in my head of my best friend just saying, stop.
But finally, on day 6, a father and son-in-law, Mario Garcia and Navarro de la Torre, went out for a walk when they noticed Matthew's wrecked truck underneath the bridge.
What did you think when you first saw him laying there?
I didn't know if he was alive or not because he was out at that moment. His first thing is, are you real? And yeah, I'm real.
Matthew was airlifted to a hospital in critical condition, later having his leg amputated, but gaining a new lease on life.
Who was Matt before the accident and who is Matt now?
So Matt before the accident suffered with anxiety, depression. So my mission going forward, I want to make people happier.
As Matthew regained his strength,
Here he is.
he also gained a family. 2 weeks ago, the men reunited for the first time at the hospital. They reunited once again.
It's amazing to see all three of you here. How does it feel to be reunited?
It changed my life meeting Matt. You know, that's something positive.
He's like my son now.
It's always amazing to see him. I don't think that even in 20 years, my thoughts on that will change.
Dana Griffin, NBC News.
Incredible story there. All right, now to a story about financial literacy and how one third-grade teacher is introducing her students to these life lessons in a very creative way. NBC News reporter Maya Eaglin gives us a look at her efforts, which are now going viral.
If you got 384, say, oh yeah.
Like many teachers, Shelby Lattimore says she loves her job, but feels overwhelmed and underpaid.
Thank you. I'm tutoring. I'm a science coordinator. I don't know anyone who is teaching or in education that does not have a second job.
But instead of working as a barista on the weekends, Lattimore's viral TikToks have been supplementing her salary as a third-grade math teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina. For every million views, she gets around $1,000 through TikTok's creator program and brand collabs.
This past year, I made 6 figures. My teacher salary is not even half of that.
And she's going viral saying the words nobody likes to hear.
I am going to take your money.
So you're charging third graders rent?
I am. I sure am.
How does that work?
They have jobs, and of course I pay them not real money. They have to go ahead and pay me rent once a month, just like I have to pay bills. They have to pay bills. So Miss Lattimore is inflating your rent.
No, come on. Every month, $7 of rent is collected for their chair and desk. Whatever's left over, they can spend on rewards or save for another day. Lattimore has over 720,000 followers and more than 22 million likes on TikTok alone. But she says this is much more than just a viral moment.
Charlotte is known for generational poverty. A lot of my students of color, Hispanic, Black, they see their parents, they see their guardian living check to check. They see the money management of not thinking long-term necessarily or the consequences of it.
There's data behind these systemic knowledge gaps. One study finding that Black and Hispanic respondents were at critically low levels of financial literacy compared to their white counterparts.
It gives you a life lesson how money is.
Marley's in 4th grade now, but she was one of Lattimore's best students last year.
Hi, Miss Lattimore.
Lattimore says it's students like Marley that remind her of why she teaches.
It's very important as a Black educator, for my students to see someone who looks like them. I'm tired of you looking better than me in our fit checks.
What's your favorite thing about Miss Lattimore?
That she looks like me. I love Miss Lattimore because she challenges us. I love Miss Lattimore's class because she encourages us.
What keeps you waking up every day and excited to go to work?
Wow, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Take a beat, take a beat.
Yeah.
You got it.
It's gonna sound so corny, but it's them. The corny little hugs that are germ-filled, but they're like, you just can't let go. And it's just like, I love my job.
Thanks to Maya Eaglin for that report. It's not just virtual support that Shelby's fans are giving. They've also sent in snacks, school supplies, hygiene kits, and more to help support her students. Just see that. What amazing lessons at such a young age.
I know, and so smart to have it on TikTok. And look what it's doing for her, too. Thank you, Maya. What a great story. Well, coming up, we're watching your wallet this morning with some new numbers that'll leave you smiling at your 401k.
After the break, the new highs on Wall Street, what it all means for your bottom line. This is Morning News Now.
We are back with some good news about your 401k. The S&P 500 index closed at an all-time high on Friday. The Dow also hit its highest mark ever.
Top of that, you've got high consumer sentiment, which has soared 29% over the last 2 months, a sign Americans are becoming rather bullish on the economy.
We've got NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans here with us to explain what it really means for you. Good morning. Thanks for being here. So let's get right to that. What does this mean day-to-day finances for people?
Well, I think that dour mood that has been just permeating the American psyche is starting to improve, and that's notable. I mean, that's news. For the last year, people have been talking about there's going to be a recession or there is a recession. That never happened, and finally you have people believing it. And there are a few reasons why. Gas prices are way off the worst of 2022 and really haven't spiked very much with all that conflict in the Middle East, which is a surprise. You've got wages growing faster than inflation, and that inflation shock is easing. So taken all together, finally, these surveys are showing that people are feeling a little bit better about the economy. And then you throw in, you know, Wall Street at a record high. That means a lot of you out there with a 401k, if you are just a boring investor like I am, you buy and hold, the S&P 500 is up 80% over the past 5 years.
Wow.
So that means it's okay to peek at your 401k, and that might be another reason why people are feeling a little better overall.
I've been doing that the last few months and like, oh, okay, that's good.
It's okay. It's okay to look.
Okay, if there is a rough spot in the economy, it has been housing. We saw the interest rates go way up last year, starting to go back down. What do things look like here?
So you're seeing the overall economy normalize, right? And still strong and resilient. You're not seeing that in the housing market. The housing market has been just frozen by those high mortgage rates. You've got something like 80% of people have a mortgage below 5% or below, so they're not moving. You've got baby boomers who normally would be downsizing. They're not downsizing, and that means there's no entree really for millennials and people who are trying to start, you know, their first-time starter home. So there's something happening in housing that has not been able to break free here yet. We don't have a long enough supply of homes. As you know, home prices are still rising, and home sales last year were the slowest since, I think, 1995. So there's something amiss, not normal in the housing market right now. And anybody who's been trying to refinance, buy, or sell has felt it. So that's the part of the economy that has been really a trouble spot. Maybe it'll loosen up this year, though. I mean, Fannie Mae, the mortgage backer, thinks that mortgage rates will go back below 6% by the end of the year. The Fed at some point could start lowering more interest rates, which would help mortgage rates fall. So that would be something that could break that logjam.
So are we free and clear of a recession? Like, can that fear just go away? Can we stop using that word?
You know, we have kind of a normal-ish risk of a recession. Like any given year, there's always a little bit of a risk, and that's where we sit right now. Overall, the economy continues to outperform expectations. When I ask CEOs and economists, give me a letter grade, I get B+, A minus, never get a C. You get a C when you talk to regular Americans who are worried about paying for college or health care or child care. But the economy, by all of the normal metrics, is doing just fine here.
All right. Christine Romans with some good news for us on a Monday. Thanks, Christine.
Let's get some other financial headlines, starting with looming financial questions for the department store chain Macy's.
CNBC's Silvana Hanau is back with us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good morning to you. So Macy's is rejecting a nearly $6 billion bid to take the department store chain private over concerns over how the offer is being financed. Now, Macy's has struggled to compete against online competitors and rivals with the smaller brick and mortar presence. Now, this has given Arkhouse, that's a real estate investing firm and a hedge fund brigade, an opening to pressure the company to explore a sale. Macy's says their offer isn't financially attractive. Reuters reports no other bids have emerged yet. Electric truck maker Nikola has received notice from the NASDAQ that its stock could be delisted from the exchange. It is the second time in the past 8 months the company has been threatened with such a move as its shares fail to meet the minimum listing requirements. It has 180 days to get the price back above $1 for 10 straight trading sessions. Nikola has traded below $1 since the beginning of December. It's been trying to raise cash to fund operations as it deals with higher costs for batteries and other parts. And the holiday debt hangover may have arrived for consumers using buy now, pay later services. Now, these helped fuel a boom in overall online spending with use of those apps surging 14% and more than 40% just on Cyber Monday. But the increasing use of buy now, pay later comes as credit card debt is hitting a record high, and the number of delinquencies or late payments have nearly doubled in the past 2 years. Klarna, for example, charges late fees that top out at 25% of the purchase price. But it does say 35% of consumers pay the company back early, guys.
All right, the pay later half of that is the not so fun part, people.
Yeah, exactly.
But
That
just
is
as
right.
important. All right, Solana, thank you so much. Now
You
for
got
a
it.
little good news for travelers looking to pack their bags in 2024. Airline
Thanks.
ticket
See you
prices
tomorrow.
are expected to fall for the first time in years.
NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa is here to tell us what we need to know and how to book on a budget. Give us some tips. Hey, Emily, good morning.
I know, don't we love a nice bright spot for our wallets at a time when it feels like we're always talking about the high costs of living? You heard that right. An expert we spoke to said we're seeing the cheapest tickets since 2009, excluding the early days of the pandemic. Certainly welcome news after prices soared to record highs as pandemic fears lifted and travel kicked into overdrive. Now, finally, signs of a return to normal.
After years of soaring airline prices, some relief on the horizon for travelers.
There are some insane flight deals going on.
The travel website Kayak estimates domestic airfare will be 16% cheaper this year compared to 2023.
Outside of the pandemic, we haven't really seen these prices since about 2009. And when you adjust for inflation, it's about 40% cheaper than it was a decade ago.
The biggest reasons: airlines increasing capacity, lower jet fuel prices, and competition between carriers.
Airlines have been able to add to their schedules. There's more capacity, more seats available for people to purchase.
Carriers scrambling to meet demand after prices hit record highs in 2022, and customer frustration reached new heights too.
The cost of flights is just kind of getting out of hand.
Airfare to international destinations remains high overall, up 10% in 2024 compared to last year, according to Kayak. But not if you know where to go. Airfare to Mexico and Central America has actually dropped by 10% from this time last year. But caution, just because average prices are dropping doesn't mean you're guaranteed a deal. It's all about knowing when to look. The travel app Hopper says it expects fares to start rising into late spring as spring break and summer travel kick into high gear. So if you're eyeing a spring break getaway, now is the time to start searching.
For those of us that are considering booking spring break, now is a really great time to do so. And you don't want to wait. We're sort of getting to our edges of our Goldilocks window when it comes to booking your flights.
That Goldilocks window, not too early or too late, is about 21 to 60 days before your trip. Use price tracking apps like Hopper, Skyscanner, and Google Flights to set up price alerts. And keep those alerts on even after you've booked. So if the price drops further, you can rebook and get travel credits for the difference.
We are definitely back in the age of cheap flights.
So we all remember that terrifying Alaska emergency landing earlier this month after a door plug detached. Well, travel site Going says there has been some lingering cautiousness among travelers since then. The number of users filtering by aircraft on online travel agencies has tripled recently. Some evidence of lingering nervousness about flying on Boeing aircrafts right now. Those MAX 9s, by the way, are still grounded as the FAA investigates.
A lot of things on people's mind right now. All right.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Emily.
Whether you plan on watching this year's Super Bowl for the football, the commercials, or Usher's halftime performance, many across the country are already making plans for the big game. But for some lucky fans, this year's game will be an experience they will never forget. NBC News Now anchor Kate Snow shows us why.
You and your dad are going to the Super Bowl.
No, you're joking.
Yes.
Across the country,
I'm going to the Super Bowl.
these football fans are celebrating.
Before you go, we have one more surprise for you. You're going to Super Bowl 58.
Surprised with tickets to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas next month.
I served for 20 years in the Air Force.
Fans like Air Force veteran Joseph O'Neill.
There he is. Let's get ready.
Honored for his service and sacrifice for our country.
We are honoring you with 2 tickets to Super Bowl 58.
I'm still shocked. I had absolutely no idea.
Vikings fan Bentley Rowe and his mom are going too.
Your mom and you would love to come to the 2024 Super Bowl.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm going to Vegas.
What's up? Isaac, how
Kansas City Chiefs superstar Patrick Mahomes delivered these tickets in person.
We're giving you Super Bowl tickets to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
And speaking of superstars,
where's Sydney?
Country music's Luke Bryan thanking this woman for her work helping first responders.
We would like to give you 2 tickets.
No.
To
Oh my
the
God.
Super Bowl.
No. You're kidding.
I'm going to the Super Bowl.
This was the jaw-dropping moment Ohio principal Nicole Barfield Davis got her tickets from the Cleveland Browns for being an inspiring educator.
What is it? 2 tickets for the Super Bowl.
It was a thrill for everyone at General Johnny Wilson Middle School.
Can you do a little play-by-play for me?
I felt like I had been blessed. And, you know, it was just one of the most amazing moments in my whole 50-year life.
Wow, I'm so excited for you. I just wonder if there's a message here. Does it mean something bigger?
It means that, you know, hard work really pays off. And when you build relationships with people from the heart and not just because it's a job, good things will happen to you.
Fun to watch all of those little surprise videos.
The
Our
little kid, I'm going to Vegas.
He's a Vikings fan, by the way. Our thanks to Kate Snow for that report. Coming up, more history made in the sports world this morning.
Yeah, after the break, we'll introduce you to the new winningest coach in college basketball history. That's next. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are going to end this hour with a record-breaking win in college sports.
Stanford's head coach Tara Vanderveer has now racked up the most wins in college basketball history after her team defeated Oregon State last night, but her long list of accomplishments doesn't stop there.
NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk is here on set with us with more on Vanderveer's iconic career. Stephanie, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. Tara Vanderveer's first head coaching job was at the University of Idaho when she was just 24 years old and Jimmy Carter was president. Now in her 45th season, she has the most college coaching wins in NCAA history, male or female, adding to her long list of incredible accomplishments, including 4 national championships and an Olympic gold medal.
Stanford head coach Tara Vanderveer making history again, becoming the winningest coach of all time in NCAA Division I basketball. Vanderveer earning her 1,203rd victory when Stanford defeated Oregon State Sunday night. The T-shirts were ready. An adoring crowd celebrated.
I just focused on each play, each possession, trying to run good things for our team and enjoy the journey.
With the win, she passed legendary Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski, who was happy to pass the torch.
Tar, congratulations. What an amazing achievement. And what's even more amazing is the manner in which you achieved so many victories.
Vanderveer has been a head coach for 45 years, the last 38 at Stanford.
Let's work harder.
Current and former players reflecting on her massive impact on the game.
This is huge for women's basketball. I think she's the greatest to ever do it. It's a masterpiece, what she has created.
She's won 3 national championships, most recently in 2021 over Arizona, ending a 29-year drought for the Cardinal. Vanderveer talking about that win on Today.
This was, I think, especially rewarding because of the COVID situation and all the adversity this team has faced.
Some of the biggest names in sports praising one of basketball's greatest.
Beyond the wins and losses and everything else, it's the impact that you've had on so many young lives.
Congratulations on this amazing milestone, and thank you so much for your leadership.
For Coach Vanderveer, success is turning her love of the game into the team's joy on the court.
For me, it's all about a team that loves to play together, and I think that they had a lot of fun today.
They definitely did. So did she. According to Stanford, Vanderveer is responsible for coaching 85% of the Cardinal wins since the start of the program in 1975. She's also had at least 30 players go on to the WNBA. Wow. And she's not done yet. We'll have to just keep watching her because she's got more wins coming, I'm sure.
Yeah, no kidding. Many more. I love how they called it a masterpiece. That is a great way to describe it.
So many to the WNBA, too. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Steph.
You're welcome.
It's going to be this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.